Hey folks, my name is Mark. Thank you for watching the episode here today. If this is the first time you're watching, maybe you can go back to episode 1 after you watch this one here. And in that episode, I give you a little bit of introduction to what my channel is all about and a little bit about my background. But at the end of the day, my goal of this channel is to provide some tips and specific steps that you as maybe a business owner, a company lead, or if you own a company, if you're leading a team, managing a team, if you're an employee or even a person, to help you make a positive difference, maybe improve customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and ultimately maybe do a better job as a leader by implementing some of the things that I will talk about today, as well as in past or future episodes. In the first episode, I talked about why it's so critically important, regardless of the type of company you work in, to have a great leader or leader who's at the top of your organization, regardless if you're running a company or a part of a company or owning a company. I've been around a lot of great leaders throughout the course of my career. I talked about in episode 1 when I gave my introduction, I retired from the Air Force back in 1995. And since then, I've been a quality manager or process manager in the telecom space. We sell to the likes of AT&T and Verizon in the US and other companies worldwide. And I've been doing that for the better of my career since I retired from the Air Force in 1995. So in this episode, I want to talk about what I consider the 4 key traits that I've observed and learned from watching some of the great folks and leaders that I've been around throughout the course of my career. There's many traits, certainly, that great leaders have. I've tried to simplify this here today and just focus on the top 4. We're coming up to the NCAA men's basketball tournament. And if you follow basketball, your goal is to get to the Final Four. So in this case, I'm focusing on the top 4 leadership traits that I feel is very important that I've seen folks implement. Before I dive into talking about these 4 traits, let me give you my very simplistic definition of the difference between a manager and a leader. My simplistic definition is managers do things, leaders get things done in different ways. Collaboration, teamwork, looking to improve, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, but that's my very simplistic definition. Years ago, I worked for an individual. He was the vice president of customer service. And I remember him having an employee meeting. And one of the things that he said really resonated with me that I've remembered since then. He said, I want folks on my team to be news makers, not news reporters. And there's a key difference between that. He wants folks to, always look outside the box. And I talked to him about that afterwards and what he meant by that. But he said, I want folks that look outside the box or think outside the box, look for how we can better improve our processes or improve customer satisfaction and do things beyond their job description. That's really what he meant by that. And I'll talk about that more, I'm sure, in future episodes. But that's a couple of very simplistic definitions, what I consider the difference between a manager and a leader. So the first trait or thing that I've seen leaders do that I've learned from is what I call delegate, empower, and trust. When I first became a manager and was responsible for a team, I struggle with this, to be honest with you, a little bit, especially the delegation piece. You think about it, as you work your way up through the ranks, you're very used to being very hands-on. If you're a technical person, you're used to doing things yourself. When you're asked to be a manager and lead a team, to be an effective leader of that team, you have to delegate, and you have to delegate effectively. But along with that, you have to empower the folks that are on your team and trust that they're going to do the job the way that it should be done. And it may not be the way you would do it, but that's okay. The one thing I've also found along with that is if you're managing a team, I've always felt it's important, if you can do this, give every person on the team something that they own and are responsible for. If this is possible, I've tried to do that throughout the course of my career. And I've always felt that that's very important for employees as well, that they feel ownership of something that they can dive into, and they can work the process around that, look for improvement opportunities around that process, etc. And they're very excited if they're owning something. I think that helps motivate them as well. So that's my first key trait, is around delegation and power and trust. So the second key trait that I have observed throughout the course of my career is around interaction and collaboration from leaders and outside of your team. I remember reading a book years ago. The author was Kenneth Blanchard, and he was pretty famous around a term that he called MBWA, which stands for Management by Walking Around. So basically what he meant by that, and I've tried to live by that mantra for all my career, is if you work in an office environment and you're a manager or a leader of a team, get out from behind your desk. Get to know the folks on your team very well. And to do that, I think it's important to have one-on-one meetings with the folks on your team, at least every other week, if not weekly, to go over the roles, responsibilities that are on their plate, any challenges that they may have, help them prioritize the activities that they may be working on, etc. But at the end of the day, get to know that person and all the individuals on your team. And works the other way around. Have them get to know you as well. But outside of your team, it's important to interact with your key stakeholders, the suppliers of your process that you may be responsible for, and also the customers of the process, internal and external. So at the end of the day, I've always felt that it's very important to have good interaction skills and processes to do that. The third key trait I feel is very important is what I call creating a culture of excellence. So to do this, you want to make sure you involve all your stakeholders, your employees on your team, the team members around you or organizational teams around you, to always look for opportunities to try to raise the bar. That's a term I like to use a lot. In Japan, they call this Kaizen, which basically means continuous improvement. And they're pretty famous for that term. I read a book years ago from an author named Stephen Covey, and he wrote a book that I would highly encourage you to read if you haven't read it already. It's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that, he talked about one of the habits that he called is sharpen the saw. And basically what that means is trying to improve as a person, individual, employee, manager, leader, organization, or whatever the case may be. Looking for opportunities again to try to improve and make strides to do things better. So the last key step or attribute that I feel is important to do as a leader is to create a strategic plan. That's what I call it. You can call it whatever you want. Some people use a term called quality plan, but whatever you want to call it. Create a plan at the beginning of the calendar year or fiscal year or whatever time frame you want to do this. You want to create a plan to identify the goals that you may have as a team, what the objectives are, how you're going to measure that, maybe some basic KPIs, key performance indicators that you can use to monitor the progress of how you're performing against those goals and objectives. And again, don't do this in a vacuum. If you're a manager of a team, involve your team in that goal setting process, that objective setting process. And along with that, set some core values. At a minimum, set some core values that's appropriate for your team. Hopefully your organization has identified at the very top the mission of the organization that you're responsible for, the core values, the vision that you may have as a organization as well. But if you're managing a team again, at a minimum, I would suggest create a set of goals, objectives, KPIs, and some core values that's appropriate for the team that you're managing. And again, don't do this in a vacuum. So that's what I want to talk to you all about today, is those 4 traits. There's a lot of traits that good leaders do beyond those 4 for sure. So I'd like to hear from you. What's some of the attributes and traits that you feel great leaders have done that you've seen, or maybe some things that you've done specifically as a manager or a leader that you've seen implemented that I haven't talked about yet? So I'd like to hear from you in the comments. Please provide that and share that with the other folks that may be watching here today. So if you see value in this, please subscribe and maybe share this with other folks that may get value out of this episode or other episodes that I've posted so far. So with that said, thank you all for watching. Have a great and blessed day. Thank you. Bye.